Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 drama. Valtteri Bottas has doubled down on all the friction the last few days between the F1 teams, the F1 ownership and the governing body in the FIA over the free speech discussion that has been raised over the last few days, suggesting the FIA are trying to control the drivers and he can't exactly figure out why. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Few updates today on the Audi Sauber side. Of course, Valtteri Bottas will be a driver for very shortly, but confirming today that Audi have bought already a minority stake in Sauber. We know this is happening over the coming years. We know that in 2026 the team will probably just become Audi or Audi Sauber potentially. Sauber, legendary brand, been around for a long time in Formula 1. They're currently partnered with Alfa Romeo, but that's not going to last too much longer. They actually reveal a statement just this morning. The Sauber group is pleased to announce that as per the plans outlined in October last year, Audi acquired a minority stake in the Sauber group in January 2023. This is an important milestone on the way to Audi's entry into Formula 1, scheduled for 26, for which the Sauber group will be the German brand's strategic partner. So we know full well this is happening. The question was for me, how quickly will Sauber become Audi? Will they just be Audi in 2026, or will they be kind of known as Audi Sauber before then? Because when they do kind of get further involved, even if they're not yet making the engines for the team, they might have some say in the driver lineup, because they made it very clear they want some German drivers. Probably Mick Schumacher will get an offer. They even probably want to bring Sebastian Vettel back, even though that might not happen. So, it's obviously a conversation that will need to be had by Bottas and Joe and everyone over the coming years as well. But if they're going to be called Audi Sauber before then, and more than likely we'll see some Audi branding on the car this year as a result of this minority stake. So Alfa Romeo probably not so happy, but at least they're going out the door, filling their pockets, because they're, partnering up with Stake, we saw the other day, kind of like a shady online crypto casino type thing. And apparently their, deal with them is $100 million over 3 years. So apparently there's some legal issues with this as well. I'm not surprised, to be honest, given the history and kind of tenure of Stake since I've known about their existence. But Alfa will at least be getting Sauber as well a fair bit of money with this partnership, which will allow them to get to a point where they can actually maybe afford some more upgrades over the course of the season, because that was one of the big things that held them back in 2022. Let's talk then about all this drama with regard to the FIA's new rule about not allowing any statements to be made that are either political, religious, or personal statements, or even comments. So this could basically be anything. I mean, they've thrown the net very wide here, and the intention is to ensure that drivers, the intention is unclear, right? There's an argument here that the intention is what is sometimes known as sports washing, to ensure that, certain points of view don't get raised in certain countries that, people might not be so keen with. For example, I don't know that some drivers, I think Hamilton has kind of implied that, I don't really care what the FIA say, I'm going to kind of say what I want to say. Now, whether the FIA is happy with that, I don't know, but I think they've got to be careful here, because we know that there's already friction between the drivers, the teams, the governing body, even the ownership. Right, recently with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, they weren't so happy with him for some comments he made on Twitter of all platforms. So this is just another such example. So this came out about a month or so ago now, where the FIA confirms that not only are you not allowed to put any political, religious or statements on your car, but now you can't even do them yourselves. Can't wear a t-shirt, can't even Seb wearing last year the Save the Bees helmet, that probably counts as a personal statement, or anything climate change related or anything like that is a personal statement, and all of a sudden the FIA will, I don't know what they could even do, fine you at minimum, I guess, based on this type of stuff if they disagree with what you've said, or if they disagree that they gave permission to you, which of course they've made it so arbitrary they can kind of do what they want. Now, Valtteri Bottas, of course, now driving for Alfa Romeo Sauber, gave the following comments on this about the political, effectively the ban of political statements, but it's not, as I say, just political, it's personal, it's, religious or whatever. And this is his quote. We'll see the full quote in a second. I don't understand why they want to control us. I think we should have the right to talk about whatever we want to talk about. This got a lot of traction on Twitter, and I think for good reason. This is the full statement. Personally, I don't like politics. I like to do what I love, which is racing, but at the same time, politics is part of today's society. I think Formula 1 has done a good job of bringing attention to some of these issues, and many drivers have raised their voices, including Sebastian, of course. I don't understand why they want to control us. It's quite clear that he believes that the FIA, the governing body, are trying to, control the narrative that's coming out of the drivers, and arguably clamp down on some of the comments that have been made by the likes of Vettel, the likes of Hamilton, the more outspoken drivers on issues that they believe in. And I mean, look, these drivers believe that it's their obligation, given the platform they have, to make known their thoughts if they believe it's going to help people, and you can understand why. Apparently there was some drama here in 2018 in Formula 2 when someone tried to put MAGA on a car, and that got shut down. But there's been some degree of ban on kind of cars having political stuff, and which I guess makes sense, because it's then related to the teams, the sponsors, and all this, but for drivers themselves to do it is, is something that the FIA probably wants to clamp down on. And they can say that their reasoning is, oh, we don't want these messages to be aligned with sponsors that might think differently or whatever the case is. But the reality is it does feel like they're trying to do this to control what the drivers say, to ensure that they don't get too out of line, right? And I think even Ben Silliam commented on it at the time and was like, well, back in the day, people used to just drive and get on with it rather than, waste their time doing all this type of stuff. So, I mean, look, Bottas, I think, echoes the opinion of a lot of fans and a lot of drivers as well, stating that they're trying to effectively control the Formula One drivers and control the narrative here. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this even before Bottas's statement, because I think even one of the members of the House of Lords was saying that, this political speech ban targets Lewis Hamilton. Now, it doesn't necessarily target him specifically, but of course he is one of the more outspoken, certainly with Seb retiring, left on the grid. Of course, last season there was also the jewellery drama, right? He had to remove that nose stud and people were like, oh, why are the FIA doing this? And I think even Will Buxton, of all people, made a comment recently to be like, wow, the jewellery ban. I think a lot of people said, okay, whatever, just take the nose piercing out, it is what it is. But it's one of these slippery slope type things. You give the FIA power to control that, which I guess technically they can do, but with people accepting it, then now they're thinking, okay, we got the jewellery thing through, why can't we get the political speech ban through? Which is maybe what they're trying to achieve. Now, Toto Wolff recently said it's probably not going to be as bad as some people think it is, but nonetheless, as I say, the language is very vague, right, from the FIA. They can kind of behave how they wish to, but I'm sure whatever they do, people aren't going to be happy, and I feel like for understandable reasons. Even the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy said the FIA was trying to silence Hamilton with this political speech ban, while, I think he's been supportive of Bahraini prisoners and rights of various persecuted groups, and, have asked him to fight this policy, and, well, he can try and fight it as best he can, and I'm sure he's going to try to, and will probably continue to say what he likes. But, not everyone agrees with Bottas's stance on this, actually. David Coulthard responded to this, and I thought gave quite an interesting perspective, stating that sport is watched by millions of people, therefore it can be used as a platform to do some good, but as an athlete, you're also very lucky. It's a bit like an acceptance speech at the Oscars. Now, the full context of this is the following, where he says, if everyone uses the opportunity to make a political statement, there is no issue that is not important to someone. So either we have to mention everything, or maybe it's better not to say anything at all and concentrate on the sport. Now, I kind of get a little bit what he's getting at here. Like, at the end of the day, I find it quite nice when sport is a bit of a separation from the real world and all the drama, the politics of the real world. But at the same time, if the drivers have a point they want to get across, and just because some drivers say some things, doesn't necessarily mean all drivers have to say everything they think all the time. I mean, Sebastian can give his thoughts on saving the bees, and Verstappen and Leclerc can just, be impartial on whatever they think at the moment. There's no necessity to do this. So I guess he doesn't want it to be overdone, but at the same time, it feels like he's defending this FIA decision. So I don't know, a bit of a weird analogy. I'm not really sure I fully understand what he's getting at here. Maybe he's also thinking, well, you're kind of lucky as a Formula One driver to even have this platform, so you better be careful with what you say with said platform, which maybe is true, but I don't know, it doesn't necessarily send the right message to me. He goes on to say, I understand there are some people who promote freedom of speech and all that. Kind of funny, he says freedom of speech and all that, as if it's like not a particularly important concept that can be wrapped around a few other things, and that is absolutely an important thing to keep in mind, but I also think that we have to remember that it is the sporting rules we're talking about, it is not the debate rules or some political regulation. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Coulthard disagrees, but just wanted to share an alternative view on the subject, given that it was being discussed. So, yeah, obviously, Sebastian Vettel is now gone. Even shortly after retiring, he was mentioning just a couple of days ago that, practicing our sport, have to think about a more sustainable option. We know that a calendar in Formula One is pretty much outrageous, right? All the traveling all around the world every single weekend, and the way it works, from Baku to Miami and then back to Europe and all this, it's an absolute nightmare, really. So I do agree with some of these points, but that's the thing. Guys like Vettel, if they were still driving, couldn't make these statements. They couldn't say, actually, you know what, Formula One, we need to do a better job here of managing the sustainability of the sport and trying to maybe group races in certain regions to cut down on air miles and stuff. That is now probably a personal statement that the FIA could get rid of if they wanted to, whatever that getting rid of potentially looks like. So I think it's right of Bottas to clap back on this. I do wonder whether drivers like Lewis Hamilton are really going to care too much on this subject about what the FIA think of them and just effectively go business as usual and then see what the FIA decides to do. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.